Talking about cryptocurrency regulation, aren't we today?
I think in the UK, in the wider network, there's actually there's a bit of a void with the regulation. They've issued hundreds of warnings stopping these unauthorized promotions to make sure the wider public is not being pulled into these get rich quick schemes. Bitcoin's value is that it's finite. Yeah. It's like gold. One day it's worth $50,000, the next it's $70,000. And in a day you can lose $20,000.
I think NFTs have a really good future. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't think they're great for just buying pictures of Logan Paul going out to the desert and throwing a grenade or whatever and saying this is worth $10,000, $20,000, spare me. Hello again, Mr. Forsyth. How are you?
Roman, very well. How was your holiday? It's been a few weeks since I've seen you.
It's been good. I went to France with the kids.
Good.
That was great. Yeah, it was really nice actually. So they caught a lot of sun, a lot of pool time.
And you? Did you catch some sun?
yeah, you wouldn't think so, would you? But no. I stayed in the shade, under back to 50. So yeah. But it's a random sort of tangent or segue, but it got me to thinking about taking the girls away on day trips as well. And this will lead on, and I will come to the topic of today's podcast in a moment.
Yeah, I'm struggling so far. Anyway.
So a couple of years ago, I took them to a day trip in this theme park. It was a rather interesting theme park in a place. It's just outside Bristol, between Bristol and Bath. Some people might know it. I won't mention the name of it, but on this day I took them, everything was Bitcoin themed. Oh. It was really quite random. That is random. There were people walking with Bitcoin tokens on, as hats, and there were people wearing Bitcoin T-shirts, and it was a big promotion apparently to be selling Bitcoin. But this whole theme park was Bitcoin themed. It was really odd. And then they had some NFTs for sale. They had lots of Bored Apes and so on for sale, and I thought this feels a bit odd, and there was a lot of, let's say, zestful promotions and selling attempts, and got me thinking at the time, was this all above board? And isn't this a good example of perhaps why, wait for it folks, we need some regulation in the sector?
Now I see. Look at that. Look at that smooth.
Thank you very much.
That smooth regulatory entrance there.
That regulatory entrance. So, well, we've got to do what we can to make this podcast interesting.
Yeah, this one's a tough one.
Brace yourself, folks.
Yeah.
Strap yourselves in. This is a long and bumpy ride. It's because we are talking about cryptocurrency regulation, aren't we today?
We are indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, digital assets and cryptocurrency. Yeah. I think mainly let's focus on cryptocurrency because that's where the kind of lead phrase goes in terms of why you need regulation. I think
if we need regulation, there's debate.
If we
on that,
need,
isn't it?
Do we need? Yeah. Well, yes. I say yes.
I say yes.
Okay, good. That's good.
We agree.
The two lawyers in the room say yes.
We say yes to regulation.
What a surprise.
We want more paperwork. That's what we want. So
you have a lot there. I'm quite light today.
I've done my prep here. You can see there's more highlighted bits than unhighlighted bits. But well, look, we know that cryptocurrencies have revolutionised.
Yeah.
Revolutionised the financial world, and they're becoming more mainstream. We saw in a previous podcast about the level of fraud, something over £300 million just in Britain alone.
Yeah.
Now
in the last year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think your stat was something like £35,000. The average loss from
fraudulent transactions or thieving or whatever you call it, hacking, phishing.
Yeah. So if it's hacking, phishing, sounds like a day with Bear Grylls, doesn't it? But you think if you've got that level of fraud going on in an unregulated sector,
exactly,
it's there to protect the consumer, and that's the thing, is because cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, started out with people who are very technologically savvy, who understand DeFi, decentralized finance, who understand blockchain and blockchain technology and mining.
Yeah.
But as popularity grows, as values grow, your general consumer wants a bit of that action, like any investment, like tulips, like gold, like art, like wine, whatever. rare metals, and this is just another example of that. And so it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's brought within the regulatory framework. So we'll discuss obviously the various ones we've got. We'll obviously do a focus on what the UK regulatory framework looks like. But
yes, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to go into that now if you like. But it is interesting in terms of, you know, you have this decentralized finance concept, and then how regulation fits and meshes into that. But I think from a public policy point of view, you have to have some kind of regulation, or maybe something like a stablecoin regulated, which is on the cards for discussion today. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the UK is an interesting one because when it comes to fraudulent issues, I think the courts are very much leading the charge in terms of how you go about recovering those assets.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and there's some quite novel ways of doing it.
Well, they are, and you've got the judges. You know, the high courts are, like you say, they're finding these novel ways to help people who have lost out, been victims of fraud or hacking. Yeah, and in turn, then you've got changes to the civil procedure rules, which are facilitating the gateways to go after this. So that's a real
becoming easier. Yeah, exactly. It's becoming more modern, which is good. But that's always, I think because there you're dealing with a judge who is being presented with the issue, which has been very well explained to them and argued in submissions as to why this should happen, and can make that order.
It's there, it's in front of them, isn't it? So they have to.
Exactly. Whereas when it comes to, there is then I think a divide when it comes to actual statute.
Legislation, regulation.
Sure, and as we all know,
procrastination.
I mean, we've got to change government now, so that's
general election,
all the shins.
Yeah, a lot of shins.
Yeah, very true. I think I had beef shin for lunch. Anyway, we digress. So I mean, I think there is a divide there where the court's leading the charge in terms of regulating a particular issue,
or facilitating the pursuit of
so helping out that particular claimant or defendant, usually claimant,
establishing those legal principles for others in the similar position, aren't they?
Exactly. But I think in the UK, in the wider network, there's actually there's a bit of a void with the regulation.
I thought you were going to say lacuna there. I thought you were going to go all lawyery and say lacuna.
I'm not that smart.
No. Nor am I, but I pulled it out. I don't even know what it means.
What does it mean? It's a type of lagoon, isn't it?
Lacuna.
Lacuna matata.
Lacuna matata. What a wonderful phrase. But in the UK, they've created, I've got it here, they've called it it was in 2018, the Crypto Assets Task Force. That's what I've liked.
Task Force.
The Crypto Assets Task Force.
Wow,
it sounds a bit Marvel, doesn't it?
It's fast moving.
Yeah,
it's counter-terrorism.
It's not quite Avengers,
like.
But it does have your three kind of Avengers assembling here. I mean, I'm really drawing out this metaphor, but you've got the Treasury, on the one hand. So the Treasury may be your Tony Stark, your money, your wealth.
Yes.
Is the Treasury. You've then got the
Yeah.
FCA, which is your Financial Conduct Authority, the regulator, your Thor with its hammer.
Well, I think they have been hammering, which is quite good.
They have, yeah. And then, last but not least, you've got the Bank of England. Your Incredible Hulk, I'd say. Kind of there, the strong stalwart, the presence.
Yeah.
So those are your Marvel superheroes, or your cryptocurrency task force
leading the charge.
They've all been joined to look at a cohesive way to coordinate the regulatory framework.
I think that's right, and I think that's within the general gist that in the UK they are taking steps towards regulating the sector, and I think the FCA really, since I have to look at my notes to remind myself of the exact order, but we know it's FSMA, so Financial Services and Marketing Act 2000, and the Financial Promotion Order 2023, which really kind of constrained the financial promotion of these types of assets. And I think that was a huge benefit. And being the Thor that they are, they have actually cracked down on that, practically speaking.
You had the examples, you've had celebs promoting this, KSI and one of the Paul brothers, and, people like that. And
exactly.
And this aims to crack down on things like that, on any sort of marketing and financial promotion of what are very highly volatile, risky assets.
Yeah, and you talk about KSI, and Logan Paul, but I think I know that KSI is a British influence. I think that's
exactly
the only link I can make to the kind of FCA regulation.
Well, that's it. And I'm not saying that he's been very. But what I'm saying is that someone like that has influence.
Exactly.
And would, if they're looking to promote a financial product based, around cryptocurrency, would fall within this.
That's right.
This regulatory framework.
That's right. And I mean, they have been enforcing the rules, which is, they've been described as vigilant and clearly busy, which I think is right. And the FCA would do that. I mean, they have the resources to do it.
Well,
which
you'd hope so.
Which is good that they're doing it. I mean, they've issued hundreds of warnings stopping these unauthorized promotions. And the idea with the unauthorized promotions, as you say, is to make sure the wider public is not being pulled into these get rich quick schemes. That there is regulations around it. So,
and they have to be, don't they? I mean, I know you look at public services generally; they've really struggled, but the FCA has been very proactive. Well, I think it's been fairly proactive with this.
Yeah, I mean they have. I think the key areas are, of course, what we just talked about there, financial promotions, but then banning the sale of crypto asset backed exchange traded notes.
Yeah.
Crypto derivatives to retail consumers. Imposing money laundering regulations on crypto asset exchange and custodian wallet providers. So I mean that pulls into everything that we deal with on a daily basis, AML procedures and all the rest of it, to make sure that the money that's coming in is legitimate, and providing a general legislative framework as much as they can.
So that's what it did, was I said it brought in those AML checks, the KYC, anti-money laundering, know your client checks, the crypto asset businesses.
Yeah.
And what's it doing next then? What's its area of focus?
Well, I think the next stage in the crypto regulation from the FCA point of view will be to implement regulating fiat-backed stablecoins. That's what they're looking at.
And by that we mean fiat currency. You usually get your sterling, your dollars.
Yes, it's a more stable. It's in the name. It's a more stable coin.
Yeah.
It's not subject to those high volatility periods. Either huge swings or huge lows. So I think highs and lows.
Because Bitcoin's not backed by a tangible asset or by a currency.
No, Bitcoin's value is that it's finite. Yeah. It's like gold, isn't it? But as we know, it's one day it's worth $50,000, the next it's $70,000. And in a day you can lose $20,000 of your wealth, and who's to say it doesn't stop it? Stop producing. Very scary. So I think we're leading the way globally in terms of stablecoins, which is...
And that was kind of, I guess, Rishi Sunak was very keen at the time to make the UK a global leader in both promoting technology around this and adopting it, and was looking at a CBDC, so central bank digital currency, and talking about these digital sandboxes, so kind of having these basically testing areas of facilities, or the ability to be able to trial new schemes and methods and so on. Obviously, what impact will, where the regulatory landscape goes now, we're under a Labour government. Who knows? I mean, looking at the Labour manifesto, there wasn't anything in there about digital asset regulation.
No, which is, I don't think that's alarming.
No, I mean the wheels are in motion anyway.
There's consultation papers in process, but I think it just goes to show that really leading the charge, I have to say, from a practical point of view, are the courts, and it is a slow uptake on the legislative side, but that's because there are processes, as we know. Putting bills in place takes a long time. Yeah. And I think but the UK generally is now a safer place in which to invest in cryptocurrency. It is.
I'd say so.
Well, certainly than it was before.
Yeah, well, that's it, and it is. Although we see there's more fraud on the rise, but in terms of legitimate cryptocurrencies and digital asset investment, I mean it's I'm just looking at my notes here. So the manifesto, I think it's page 32, says Labour will ensure economic regulation supports growth and investment, promotes competition, works for consumers, and enables innovation, which I guess alludes to, your cryptocurrency, crypto markets.
Would it be helpful if they said including digital assets?
Well, quite. So,
no, but I think that's right. And what's happening globally then?
So I mean, globally, you've got. I mean, it's quite. The big one is what's happening in the EU, but you've got. I mean, the US is doing lots, and they've got various different regulators and bodies that look at this. So, they've got. They've got a complicated or complex regulatory environment, the US, in terms of that. I mean, they've got numerous agencies. They've got the SEC, which is Securities and Exchange Commission. Yes. They've got the FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. They've got the CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And all of these then look at securities laws, they look at AML compliance and consumer protection. So they're looking at that. You've got China's taken a very strict approach.
Yeah.
So they basically, for a large part, are banning cryptocurrency trading and mining. But interestingly, they're apparently developing their own digital currency.
Well, because they know the intrinsic value in it.
Yeah. And they want to maintain control over the financial system there.
Yeah.
On the flip side, perhaps unsurprisingly, Japan has embraced cryptocurrencies and it recognises them as legal property. So we had the Law Commission conversation. We saw that there was a third type of asset. And so they've got a financial services agency, and that regulates exchanges and enforces strict AML requirements and know your client regulations. And then in Europe we have MiCA or MiCA. Okay. I don't know if it's MiCA like the singer or.
I was going to say the singer. No. Is he leading the charge on crypto regulation?
Well, he does the Eurovision Song Contest, so maybe the Eurovision cryptocurrency.
That needs to be regulated in itself. I'm not sure it was that funny, but thanks.
That's good. I enjoyed that. But so this is the market in crypto assets regulation.
Right.
So market in crypto assets, MiCA.
Yeah.
So either feeler filer.
Yeah.
But basically, this is again like most regulations or legislation, coming out of the EU, it looks to bring cohesion to it. So it doesn't apply with cryptocurrency or with where areas that are already regulated by EU members.
Right.
That looks to bring uniform rules. So across the EU for crypto assets which aren't currently covered by existing financial services legislation. It's got a big focus on transparency and disclosure.
Yep.
So that it mandates that. Again, the key is consumer protection, financial stability, and then they've got an implementation timeline. So it was, I think, initially part of it was implemented December 2023. There's a recent implementation of part of it in June, I think it was, as well. So, and then, I think that they're saying the purpose is to foster innovation.
Yeah.
Here, but I was listening to a podcast the other day. I won't mention it because who needs to listen to that. But they were saying that the implementation of MiCA has perhaps also had an effect on the markets, because we were just discussing this earlier about Japan. You were talking about
we're hiking up the interest rates.
Yeah.
Everyone pulling out their money from the stock exchange. Well, not stock exchange, but stocks.
Yeah.
As a result. So in that podcast, were they saying that's going to help drive up the value?
Well, they were saying that with MiCA, it's causing concern in the market
because of the regulation.
Yeah.
No, I can see that. I mean, this is the whole problem with it, isn't it? I mean, the value really is in it being decentralized and not regulated. But I think governments have to, and like you're saying there, as we're seeing in England and Wales, and now elsewhere, that they really are there to look after the consumer, because there's in the UK alone in the last year, what was that stat? Over 300 million.
Yeah.
Stolen. Well, not stolen, but fraudulently obtained.
Yeah.
So that's 300 million pounds.
That's a lawyer's way of saying stolen, basically.
Stolen.
Yeah.
That was once 300 pounds of fiat currency. It is now lost cryptocurrency.
300 million pounds. Yeah.
I mean, it's.
But yeah, so this MiCA, what it looks to do, so it's It's the issuing, offering to the public, and admission of trading of crypto assets. And what they do, it distinguishes the following types. So you've got e-money tokens, and there's a crypto assets that stabilize their value in relation to a single official currency. Basically, like stable coins, isn't it? I think it's
the same-ish thing.
Kind of pegged to a fiat currency, and then asset reference tokens. These are crypto assets that stabilize their value in relation to other assets or a basket of assets. So maybe pegged to the value of gold, I guess, or Ferrari 250 GT California.
Worth more than its weight in gold.
It's beautiful.
Actually, it probably isn't. I don't know.
About 100 million.
Could you say that's worth more than its weight in gold?
How much is?
I don't know. How much does it weigh? Anyway, this is a segue.
Probably about a ton and a half, I'd say. So how much is a ton and a half of gold? We'll have to get some stats on
someone smart, the one person listening to this podcast will know.
Well, or they just know how to Google it, don't they? So the fact is the EU is taking steps. Now, that doesn't apply to the UK.
No.
Although if we're obviously trading with countries within the EU, then that will fall within their regulatory framework.
Yeah.
So that's that. But then back to what's going on in the UK. So we've got obviously our crypto assets task force.
Yeah.
And the big thing they're looking at now is obviously the financial promotions, and there was in the press recently about the Love Island and Towie, I say stars, use that term loosely, I mean, they're probably about as...
Well, they're more famous than us.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
if this gets stratospheric, who knows?
That's not hard.
No, quite.
Although you do have a remarkable resemblance to Ryden.
There we go.
Or Borat.
Well, can we cut that part of the podcast, please? But part of this task force, so the big thing they're looking at is stablecoins, isn't it? I am moving on, Mr. Forsyth. All right, they're looking at stablecoins, aren't they? So what are they looking at with stablecoins?
Well, I mean, that's a good question.
I mean, I've got to effectively here. They're saying that the government obviously issued a consultation. They want to facilitate and regulate the use of fiat-backed stablecoins in UK payment chains. So what that means is, at its simplest, I tried to distill it into its simplest form of
please,
which that appeals to both of us. But the fact is that what they're saying is stablecoins, so these cryptocurrencies that are pegged or linked to your fiat currencies, your dollar, your sterling. In this case, it will only apply to sterling. Proposing people, the government is seeing that that's going to be the way that people start to trade, start to purchase goods, and particularly purchase goods across borders.
Right.
So because of that, they see that that's going to be an obvious area for regulation, because it falls within, you're using payment platforms that, regulated by the Bank of England. Obviously, the Treasury is going to be concerned about, money and goods going, crossing borders, and naturally the FCA is going to want to be involved. So that's the rationale behind looking at stablecoins.
Yeah.
So they say, certain stablecoins have the potential to become a widespread means of retail payment, driving consumer choice and efficiencies.
Yeah.
So I guess the main tenet behind this is looking at protecting the consumer, but also enabling the consumer to use these stablecoins, isn't it? So it's, I guess it's a chicken and egg scenario. I'm not sure, but either way, and again, then they bring in, they had FSMA, the Financial Services Markets Act 2000.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in FSMA 2023, which makes changes to 2000 Act, and it's there now ready, almost like a holding legislation to allow for these further changes.
Yeah.
And so it started to implement those. Now, what they were hoping pre-gen election was to have the Secretary of Education, this legislation, then they wanted to put in these new legislative provisions. So they published a consultation, but obviously everything's slightly on the back burner now. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, looking at my next note, and I mean, these are big things. So you've got, this is the FCA's regulating crypto assets stablecoins paper.
Look at that.
It's a good bedtime read. So that's just the FCA ones. Then you've got the Bank of England one. And this is the Bank of England regulatory regime for systemic payment systems using stablecoins and related service providers. So say that after a few drinks.
But this is the interesting. I mean, there's a lot of focus on stablecoins, but not actually what we're looking at. There's not a lot of focus on the more traditional types of cryptocurrencies.
Because they're saying they're not, and the reason is because they're saying they're not likely to be used for retail payments and purchases.
No, yeah, sure, I get that. But people do invest in them.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and that's it. So that's the investment side, and here they're looking at. I think this is about commerce, isn't it? It's about the economy, boosting the economy through trade and
which
purchases.
is great.
Yeah, exactly, and what the Bank of England said, is the emergence of stablecoins, a new form of privately issued digital assets, put to maintain a stable value against the fiat currency. Now they cite the FCA paper. There was a consultation back in February, which then they closed, but. What they're saying is they didn't talk about the Bank of England's role, so they wanted. First thing they say, part one, supporting innovation. So this is trying to show, Great Britain as the leaders in this.
We're modern.
We're modern.
Modernity.
End-to-end regulation. So the FCA's remit was expanded to include stablecoin issuers and custodians, and then they set out the proposed requirements. And so it does. As you can hear from the rustling of papers, it goes into a lot of detail.
Well, that does look detailed.
But they say that what they propose is that issuers of these stablecoins will be required to fully back their stablecoins with deposits at the Bank of England.
Right.
So that's where the consumer safety comes in. So that's the Bank of England's approach to that. And then there's another 100, 200 odd pages around that. And the Treasury itself. So we look at the FCA and we look at the Bank of England. So the Treasury, made a number of proposals, and they're looking at bringing a regulated activities order. They're looking at designated activities regime. They've confirmed the adoption of a broad definition of crypto assets. Now, interestingly, and it's a bit of a segue, but on NFTs, because I think NFTs have a really good future. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't think they're great for just buying pictures of Logan Paul going out to the desert and throwing a grenade or whatever and saying this is worth $10,000, $20,000, spare me. But I think those and securities tokens, these which are better than the blockchain, proof of ownership, transfer of ownership. That's the future. It's got to be the future. But interesting. Originally, the Treasury was saying that they weren't really going to look into NFTs at all, and they've repeated that again. The most recent feedback is saying that they don't think that they should be subject to financial services regulation because they're not really used for trading. They're for ownership or investment. So, but then what they want to do is to focus on deciding whether an NFT, if it falls within their regime, it's whether what it's used for. Yeah. So is it used to buy a good, or is it used as an investment, or is it used to show ownership? And that's going to be the key. So it's less looking at the term, looking at what's behind, piercing the veil of the NFT, I guess, is the way
I think they've hit the money. Yeah, I think that's quite right, because usually they're just retained and to show proof of ownership.
Yeah.
Really. They're not really used for, especially you could barter. It's kind of you can't really pay with an NFT like a traditional.
I suppose you could use anything to pay with it for anything, I guess. But I suppose, and at the same time, people are looking to sell them. They might come under the financial promotions.
Exactly, that's the point. Yeah. So really, what we're saying in the UK is stablecoins leading the charge on that.
Yeah.
Financial promotions of cryptocurrency
generally, and then you've got obviously
is good and in place. Yeah. And that's about it on the regulatory side.
And then there's they talk about issuing crypto assets. So to admit a crypto asset to on a cryptocurrency trading platform will be regulated. So that's what Treasury are proposing, and public offers. So let's say ICOs would also be that would be treated as a designated activity.
It's interesting. So really, we only really have one targeted piece of regulation in force, which is the financial promotions,
and then just generally cryptocurrency trading platforms, and obviously and things like that. Again, you check the FCA register, see if they're on there. But
so there's lots of will be done, or could be done, or should be done. But
we need action, damn it, don't we? We need action.
Well, we do.
So, But yes, but the fact is, the Bank of England, the FCA, and the Treasury, they all have consulted on this. They've published these long papers. So, and we have got FISMA 2023. There is a crackdown, as you said. The courts are alive to this, so it is going to happen. I think, regardless of the change of government, I think Labour will be looking into this. I think they probably decided to keep it deliberately broad because they're looking at the regulation across the board.
Exactly. Yeah, this is probably, I'm not going to say last on their list, but it's probably not the most.
It's probably running itself. Well, it's running itself, but to a large extent.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at it, feeding back to Law Commission, and So there we have it. That is a canter through.
That was a canter.
That was a bit of a horse pun based on Stablecoin.
No, I don't
Canter
get it.
through. No,
Well,
that was poor, wasn't it?
I should probably rein it in.
Probably shouldn't, not me. But there we go. So there we have it. That's crypto regulation as it looks at the moment. But when we have any more updates, we'll let our one listener know.
Probably in a year's time with the regulatory side of things.
Absolutely. Probably a lot more cases then.
Well, thanks very much.